can opener. These things work great. I've been using them my whole life. And if I come across some canned food, I want to be able to open it, so that's part of my kit. I also have a titanium spork in here. But this little guy right here, which is free, it's a piece of trash practically, is totally waterproof. It's very durable. It can float across the ocean and arrive on another shore in perfect condition. Happens all the time. And they're free. So I use these all the time for kits where I want something, in my kayak especially, I'll put like a first aid kit. I'll make a first aid kit in this, or a fire kit or a survival kit. And I use these a lot. And I also teach in my survival classes how to make a survival kit that fits in one of these things, because, you know, it's unimprovable. It does everything that this Pelican box right here does, but that costs $35 or $50 or something, and this is free. So those are worth having, and it also happens to fit just perfectly inside of my mug, so it doesn't take up any extra space. I might, you know, bulk that thing, fill that thing up a little bit more with salt and spices and other things, but that vessel is watertight, so it's another water container for me. It's just, I could put my leftovers in it if I haven't finished a meal and I want to have something enough for lunch. Having a sealable, lightweight container is really, really very useful. Good 2-liter water bottle. Again, I like to have parachute cord on things. This has got a Turk's head knot that I tied around it. That's about 4 feet of parachute cord on that. And it's a very firm attachment to, if I need to clip this onto a pack or something like that. That's not coming off of this. This is a steel container, so I can, and it's even got a steel lid on it. I can take the lid off, or even just take the silicone ring off of it, and I can put this right in the fire and boil water with it, or hang it above the fire. So I recommend, if you're going to go out into any conditions, to have a minimum of 2 quarts of good water with you. Usually when I go backpacking, I actually bring, or excuse me, this is 1 quart. A minimum of 1 quart. And when I go backpacking, I will usually have 2 quarts unless I'm very assured that there's water along the way. Where I live, this time of year, I'm not going to have difficulty finding water, so I only go into 1 quart right now. This is a super lightweight, $20 or $25 waterproof, breathable rain parka that I got at Costco that I've been very happy with. I own 3 of these. We live in a day and age where you can get waterproof, breathable, hyper lightweight stuff that costs, this would have cost $300 10 or 15 years ago. And now I can pick them up like they're, you know, cheaper than a windbreaker at Costco. And I have done many days of hiking in the rain in these things. I'm really happy with them. The brand of this one happens to be 32 degrees cool. I don't know what that is, but we're really lucky for that. This thing actually packs up to half this size when I have it compacted. No reason to not have a good waterproof, breathable layer anymore. This pouch here is actually the pouch that jacket came in from Costco, and I'll show you the things that I have in it. This is just kind of an organizer pouch. This is a fire kit, another peanut butter jar that is full of birch bark, fat wood, a ferro rod, a cigarette lighter, a bunch of big fat wood matches that are stuck in there, and just, you know, in general, it's a fire kit. It's waterproof, it'll float, you know, all the things that I want a fire kit to be. I can take this and toss it into something. So that's one thing. Random length of parachute cord. This is braided bank line. I believe this is 36-pound braided bank line, which has like a 490-pound test or something for something. I've got stuff inside of it, more parachute cord, but you can see how much thinner it is than the parachute cord, and it's nearly as strong. This is 500-pound test, and I think I saw this as 490 the other day. It doesn't have the inner cords in it, but I have 200 or 300 feet in my hand right now, and if that was parachute cord, it would be 3 times as bulky. So I've gotten to be a big fan of that in the same lately. This is another random length of parachute cord. That's going to be mostly used for another random length right there. That'll be for my shelter building. And then down in the bottom here, another Ziploc bag full of random odds and ends. I have another cigarette lighter in here. There's an old military first aid kit, extra batteries, another ferro rod, and a piece of Gorilla Tape, and a black magic marker. I actually got in a habit of taking black magic markers with me back when I used to hitchhike quite a bit up and down the West Coast. I can take this magic marker and take a random bit of cardboard up off the side of the road and make a sign for hitchhiking and let people know that I need help or I need a ride or whatever. It's worth doing that. Also, just for leaving a note. You can write directly on the glass of a car with this, like on the driver's side door, saying, hey, I went this direction, or I broke down, this is why I'm still here, and it's going to be durable in the weather for weeks. So a good Sharpie is a good thing to have, especially if you need to communicate. I have a sharpening stone. This is a piece of sandstone, very fine, or maybe it's more of a schist or something like that. This is a sharpening stone I used on a loan, and it's kind of like a lucky charm to me now, so I take it with me everywhere on all my trips. Toilet paper, self-explanatory, useful. Maybe you don't need it wherever you're headed, but I figured I had room for it, so I'd grab it, and it's very lightweight. Again, another Ziploc bag, and again, another Bic lighter inside of there. Okay, now we're getting into, well, I'll go on the outside here. This is a standard cotton bandana tied onto one of the straps here. I typically travel with at least 2 bandanas. One of them can be a mask for keeping dust or pathogens or something out of my face, keep me from coughing on people. And then there's another, I guess you can't even see down that low, can you? There's another pouch that I've got attached on here that has a small first aid kit with a thermometer on it. For this particular event that we're going through, I think a thermometer is a very valuable thing to have in your first aid kit, along with anything having to do with hygiene, obviously. But thermometer is what they're using to determine whether or not you have a fever, which is one of the earliest symptoms of COVID-19. So my passport is also inside of here. I have a recent passport. So I live very close to the Canadian border. I can actually see Canada from my island. So there's, if there's a chance I'm going to be there, it's good for me to have my passport or a second ID on hand. So no need to open that up. This isn't a review for first aid kits, but that's the smallest first aid kit I would ever carry. I typically recommend going with something bigger than that, and I have several others. But this is my clothing bag. And this bag is an outdoor research dry bag. It's very lightweight. I could use it for kayaking, but it's not really, durable for that to be used all the time. But it's very waterproof. It's seam sealed. It's got a roll top on it, and this has got multiple uses, obviously. But it's going to keep all my clothes dry primarily. First thing I have right out of the gate is a wool quilted. The outer part is wool, the inside is quilted with nylon, and then it's insulated in it. Just a button-up shirt. This is one of my most comfortable work shirts. It doesn't look weird. As far as gray man stuff goes, I can wear this out into town. Nobody's going to think twice about me or even remember that I was there necessarily. So that's a good piece. It's lightweight, it's compressible. It's very warm, and because it's got that nylon on the inside of it, it's also fairly windproof. So it's basically a jacket / shirt. Next, I have a hoodie. None of my clothing has cotton in it. If you've ever heard the term cotton kills, there's a reason for it. Most outdoors people die from hypothermia if they're going to die in the outdoors. Cotton, hemp, and other plant-based fibers are very hydrophilic, meaning they absorb water like crazy and they don't let it go very well. And when you're wearing wet cotton, it pulls body heat out of you faster than being naked. So it might have some wind repellent properties above that, but it's very bad form. We used to say, blue jeans killed people when I was learning survival when I was like a kid, when I was 8. In the 80s, blue jeans killed more people than anybody else, and that's because they're made of cotton. So these are not something that I would pack in my bug out bag. I would go with something that's wool or synthetic in my pants, and then in my shirts. I typically stick with wool as a rule. This layer underneath here is wool. This is a wool shirt. You can get for $20 now at Costco a merino wool long sleeve shirt, and it's just a miracle. Those things used to cost $80. They're so comfortable in all temperature ranges, in the hot, in the cold. They dry fast. It's just the only thing I'm going to pay money to have up against my skin. Same thing with my socks. I go all merino wool. This happens to be polyester. It says Lopez Island across the front of it. That's where I live. So if somebody finds me, maybe I'll want them to know where I live. If not, then maybe not. But this is also camouflage. So if I'm going to be doing any hunting or what have you, I've got a layer that allows me to kind of disappear if I want to do that. I really fell in love with hoodies when I started bringing them on backpacking trips. After I bought this, actually, now that I had one that was non-cotton, to sleep in a sleeping bag with a hoodie on when the weather's cold, it's really nice for retaining that much more heat into your head. And it's basically a hat, an extra hat I have built into some of my clothing. The reason I don't wear synthetic stuff more often is because it stinks very quickly. So none of my base layers will ever be synthetic, polyester, or any of those things, because inside of a few hours they start to stink. And wool grows out of a warm-blooded animal that can't take it off. So it's just more comfortable, merino wool in particular, and it doesn't absorb dirt and odor and all those other things. It stays good for months. So that's the utility of wool is just can't be beat. This is a very lightweight merino wool t-shirt. Probably about half the thickness of a regular cotton t-shirt. So for hot weather, or just underneath it. This is a merino wool hoodie. A thinner one. This is about t-shirt weight, but that will line inside of that polyester one, that camo one that I had earlier. That's when it's okay in my mind to wear synthetic stuff, is when it's not in contact with my skin and body odor is not going to be breeding in it. So this is a pair of regular old hiking pants. Nothing special about these. They've got a cargo pocket in them. They are that stretchy nylon stuff, so they're very comfortable to wear. They, out on the street though, they just look like a pair of slacks, but I could go rock climbing in them. Pair of merino wool socks. A pair of merino wool long johns, and those couple really nicely if I'm washing my regular pair of pants. They couple nicely with like a pair of shorts over the top of them, which I thought I had packed in here, but apparently I do not. A merino wool long sleeve t-shirt, very lightweight, and a pack towel. This is something I mostly brought so I can lay something out and have a clean surface to work on if I need to. But this is a full-sized pack towel, and they work really well at making you dry. So I brought it for that utility alone. And then I have this bag. This bag I could haul probably 4 gallons of water in if I needed to bring water back to my camp. So you think about the utility of all the little bits and pieces of your camp. When I was on alone, I had a bag about this size that I put my clothing inside of with really clean wood ashes and water, and I made this thing into a washing machine. Okay, I did the roll top, I closed it up, I had this full of water and clothing, and I agitated it for a few minutes. And ashes are very alkaline. They're actually what soap used to be made out of, along with fat. So the body oils, fats that are in my clothing would interact with the ashes or the alkalinity in the ashes. The stuff I'm trying to clean out actually itself turns into soap, dissolves into the water, pour it all out of the water, put fresh water in it, do a couple of rinse cycles, and I had really good clean clothing. I did that several times when I was on alone, and it worked a charm. It removed all the odor and everything from my clothing. Just had to rinse it out really well. So again, this is like a giant Ziploc bag. It's just super useful to have. And then I've got kind of an old 80s thick synthetic vest that, a lot of this clothing isn't something that's the style I wear today, so I'm not tempted to haul it out and take it out of my bug out bag so I can wear it around. But this thing is durable, it's thick, it's comfortable, it's got good warm lined pockets, and it was free, at our local free secondhand store. So why not toss it in there? It's also got a big, tall, high collar that goes right up to the bottom of my chin, so that seals off that part of my body. Down deeper in, this is a 10 by 10 tarp. I'm going to do a gear review of this tarp sometime. This is made by Snugpak, S-N-U-G-P-A-K. They make some really good gear. This is the best tarp I have ever used, and I have been camping with tarps for over 20 years now, and primarily instead of tents. And it is reinforced at every grommet. It's got loops. It's just got all the bells and whistles. It's still really lightweight. And then I have pre-tied on parachute cord to all of the corners and probably the peak in this thing. So this thing is good to go shelter at just over a pound of weight. I have a 100 square foot shelter. Backpacking tents are getting lightweight, but they're still not coming close to that kind of lightweight and that kind of coverage. So this can, if it's put up well, can withstand practically a hurricane too. So a good tarp is my go-to shelter as a rule. I wanted to have kind of a big option for the ability to fell trees, limb trees, make a shelter, all that stuff. And I already have a good knife on me that would be serviceable. I didn't want to bring something as heavy as a hatchet though. So my buddy Nick actually gave me this as either a Christmas or a birthday present a couple of years ago. And this is a tool that Gerber makes. I don't know what it's called exactly, but it's pretty lightweight, but it's a really good chopper. I'm going to make some adjustments to it now that I've used it for a little while and know how I want it to be. But this is a pretty good tool. I may do a gear review on this as well, but mostly it's flat and it's lightweight, so it fits down inside of this pack without any kind of inconvenience at all. And it's got a good belt loop on it, so it could actually fit on the outside of the pack if I'm using it a lot, or onto my belt. So this is my big chopper option for a tool that, again, most of you probably won't want to bring something like that, but it's something that I do. I've got another little ditty bag here that has got kind of warm layers in it. So this is a wool hat. This is a kind of a funny looking Gore-Tex hat that Outdoor Research used to make way back in the day. It's called the Hat for All Seasons, and it's got a lining in it. It's waterproof. It's got ear flaps that come down if I want them like that, or it can just flip up and be a single layer like this, like a ball cap, or I can put on this thin knit cap and wear this over the top of it. So I've got, like 4 different, it's called the Hat for All Seasons for a reason. They don't make them anymore, but if you can find something that does those things, then, versatility is the idea. It looks funny as hell too. I never wear this thing, so I'm not tempted to grab it and then not have it when I need it in this pack. So that's why it's in there. I have a buff from Buff. This is what a neck gaiter is another term for it. This one's actually folded in half. This is a thinner weight. I'd call it like a t-shirt weight, but it's double thick. I wore this when I was on alone. This particular one, every minute I was out there practically, I always had this on. If you have ever studied any of Morris Kohansky's books on like northern bushcraft and all that, I highly recommend it. But he says that putting on a scarf is the equivalent of adding a medium weight sweater on, because sealing up this this part of your body, it's keeping heat from coming out of your shirt and your jacket. But if you ever look at a temperature sensitive image of a human, this part of their body is white hot. This is where all of the blood vessels that are going up to your brain have to come from. So there's no constriction in here, not like when your fingers get cold when it's cold outside. You are losing maximum heat out there, and that happens to be where men grow a beard. I don't think that's a coincidence. But there's a great, oh shoot, well, I'll talk about that later. But some kind of scarf is a great thing to have. Maybe that's a shemagh. I highly recommend the North by North shemaghs. They're made out of merino wool. All others are made out of cotton. I've already talked about cotton as being not great, but whatever option you can come up with. Silk scarves are also kind of nice, and they're very compact. This is a pair of military wool gloves. I am a pretty big fan of these. They're pretty cheap, they're lightweight, and you can work in them. They're durable. I have done a lot of work in these, and they don't have a single hole in them. This is a little Mylar space blanket, one of those things. I've already used this one, and they don't fold back to their original size anymore, but you'll see it's in another Ziploc bag with a rubber band wrapped around it. Rubber bands are good fire starters in addition to their normal utility. And then the ditty bag itself. It would be nice if this thing was totally waterproof. It's not, but that would be another more useful item. And then here at the bottom, I have we're coming into late spring here. Where I live, doesn't get that cold at night, so this is a 30-degree down sleeping bag. And this is made by Marmot. I'm in love with this bag. It's called the Never Winter bag model. And you see how that zipper just went all the way without getting hung up once? Marmot does these awesome zipper pulls that never get snagged. I'm really happy with it. So this is a 30-degree bag, and it's that newer dry down stuff, which I had never used before I got this bag. The down has been treated so it's hydrophobic instead of hydrophilic. That's always been a big problem with down. I never owned down because I always lived in Western Washington, and that was like a death sentence if you got wet. But the newer stuff, I guess, is pretty good. Jury's still out completely. I've only had that bag for a little over a year, but it's useful. This is a waterproof bivy sack made by Outdoor Research that I can couple with that 30-degree bag. And the general rule of thumb is you're adding like 10 or 15 degrees of warmth to a sleeping bag if you put a bivy bag over it. So that takes my 30-degree bag down into the 20 to 15-degree bag range. And that's pretty useful. This is the stuff sack that the bag comes in, but you'll notice it's super bright colored. Bright, I typically don't want to be really high visibility if I'm trying to mind my own business and other people are going to mind theirs, but sometimes if it's an emergency you want something bright. And I would add another thing that I have here